There's this man's photo on the wall of my father's office at home. You know, where father brings his work, where he doesn't look strange, still wearing his green uniform and colored breastplates, where, to prove that he works hard, he also brought a photo of his boss, whom he calls Apo, so Apo could, you know, hang around on the wall behind him and look over his shoulders to make sure he's snappy and all. Father snapped at me once, caught me, sneaking around his office at home, looking at the stuff on his wall: handguns, plaques, a sword, medals, a rifle. Told me that was no place for a boy, only men, when he didn't really have to tell me because, you know, that photo of a paw on the wall was already looking at me around, his eyes following me like he was that scary Jesus in the hallway, saying, I know what you're doing. The Philippines contains many old stories of the historical events that were integral for becoming the current individuals and nations that we Filipinos aim to be. When faced with those hard times, they fought for their nationality and rights, not just by persevering display of righteous prowess, but also through fictional lenses that investigated and visualized these parts of history to spread the message of their despairing struggles and the needed justice that they deserve. The story Upon the Wall is no exception, as it focuses on one of the Philippines' most significant events that greatly affected itself and its people, including those outside the country. Since I'm a person of the new age, I never experienced such happenings, yet by only reading this short text plus the background info, it gave me an idea on how the atmosphere was received during its duration. Learning about its relation to the real world made me delve back into the old days of my country, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Upon the Wall was written by B.J. Patino during the time of martial law that explores the fearing side it displayed towards the Filipino citizens. The title has obvious ties to the story, but it reminded me of the other time this specific term was used for a political figure, yet this other person wasn't even real. In the US, the poster person for their national government, Uncle Sam, became the personification of their country. Since Ferdinand Marcos, the former dictator of that time, was the president, you could say that he embodied the Philippines, even though that's not true. From what I can gather, the author's full name, Bernard Julian B.J. Patino, was affiliated with the Davao Writers Guild and worked as a project manager in the Mindanao Project. He took the master's degree in literature and was a graduate of Ateneo de Manila University. He was born on March 9th, 1927, and flourished on July 15th, 1988, which, when fitting the timeline of the martial law, which was September 21, 1972 to January 17, 1981, it makes sense I was able to put enough detail into his work on said law. Upon the Wall was published during the declaration of the martial law, and no other information is revealed about it. No date of publication, just that it was written and publicized during this time. Nothing else. It shows the readers the effect the Marcos dictatorship had and the negative side that came with it, especially in the mind of a child. It doesn't sugarcoat the situation this brings and openly shows the intensity of the event. There's a certain disdain that the text has towards its main topic, seeing as it talks about the despair it brought onto its people. The writer has no official biography to be seen out in the open, but I'd like to imagine he was proud of his work's effectiveness of bringing one of history's dark times to life as it displays itself with great quality. The words tell the emotions that the martial law wrought, therefore the writer have succeeded in his literature. A Paw on the Wall tells the story of a child's naivete, pulling him to discover and experience his father's unexplained work and demeanor. The intensity gradually overwhelmed the kid as he lived with his father and eventually discovered the contents of his father's office. It was filled with many armaments and memorabilia with a picture of Apo hanging on the wall. The story ends with the child facing the fearing gaze the image has on him, further stating that a superior status a person has among the world can also be felt from just a captured posture. As the author and audience analyzed, the Apo on the photograph was heavily influenced by a certain dictator of that time, which was Ferdinand Marcos. The martial law was initiated by him that overruled every other law that stands in his methods of presidency, letting him make things however and whatever he wanted. Patriotism was one of the themes of the poem, and the man that was featured in the poem was described as a follower of the act, whatever his motivations was, which was a somewhat prominent factor into the citizens' perception of the law. We can only assume how this event affected them with the text the author has given us. They mainly looked through the view on the negative, being those that received the bad end of the just law, which was the clear view people had on this until now. Opposite of this, that wasn't shown much, is the good reception of the law despite the bad reception, which only focused on the positives, yet small factors, which is a pretty poor reason to encourage such actions. The anonymous writer remains a stranger to the public eye, but at least we have his take on this to confirm. The poem has no stanza. Well, it only has one stanza to be exact. While the lines may obviously be dialogue from a child, the way it's structured adds more to that. It's a continuous yet short narration, while it also serves as the internal downfalling perception the child is experiencing throughout his journey. One thing that weirded me out was the frequent use of the phrase, you know, but as I thought about it, it also makes sense since the person speaking doesn't know how to speak properly or maturely yet. The poem is simple and doesn't use much deeper words in its storytelling, making it open for many people to read. It's a Filipino literature, yet uses the English language. It's a work not usually done within your native country. It tells its story straightforwardly, yet delivers its message in a subtle way for others to analyze and interpret, despite it not being too deep. It makes itself accessible to many audiences. The topic was treated with seriousness and open mindedness. It doesn't stray away from the atmosphere it wants to discuss its topic in. It's the sort of short story people are fond of when it comes to learning or somewhat experiencing perspectives in historical events. It's educational since it explores a certain real life event. Anybody can read it due to its text length.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you to my next vlog. Bye!